I'm going to unmute myself. Hi, Paul. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Dee. It's great having you all on. I'm Bally, so we got Paul there. How you doing, Liza? Hey, Ellen. So good to see you. Hi, Liza. It's been a while too. Ellen. Dee often is working. I'm assuming you're still working, Dee. It's good to have you on. I missed you last time. Dee's connecting. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm going to go straight in, and I will just start with asking a couple of questions. It looks like Dee, as long as you can you hear me? You can? Oh, fantastic. Great. That's key. So I just want to make sure you can hear me. So excited that you're here. Okay, so we'll begin and just to say please ask questions. I love questions. So as we're going through today, what I'd like to hear is what are you enjoying most about AI? You can unmute, you can pop it in the chat. It's always good to hear what you're enjoying most. Of course, today we'll be looking at writing, but what are you enjoying the most with this, the various tools, right? What are you enjoying the most? And like I said, you can unmute, so feel free to do that, or you can pop it in the chat. It will pop up in the chat for me.
Hey, Bally, I'm happy to jump in first. Um, I'm really late to the party, I think, with AI. I know people have been talking about using AI in their business for a long time, and I've been going, no, 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 no. And then just really, really recently, I've been discovering it for writing, particularly maybe creative writing, because I think fairly factually. So I might write something which is factual but quite emotive, and I can pop it in and go, now please make this sound, like this or like this. And it can sort of, or I did one earlier because I'd had a bit of a confrontational meeting with someone. So I wrote up my notes and I popped it in and said, please make this sound more neutral and less confrontational. and so that's what I'm enjoying at the moment. And to be honest, I don't really know what else is out there. So I'm really new at this, I feel.
Oh, you're welcome. And this is the thing, right? Because we all start at a different point. So it's beautiful. When you are working, you are using the tools and you're kind of looking at confrontation. I'll share things with you. So that's going to be key, right? I'll definitely share things with you, and it's beautiful to hear that you're using it. So we've got Ivan here. Ivan's joined. And Paul and Liza, what are your take on that? What are you enjoying about, what you enjoying using AI for? What are you using it for? Kind of what's the kind of best you have you
I'll be
done
quick.
with it?
I'll piggyback on what Ellen said because that's how I am using it quite a lot. In drafting letters, I've used it in working with solicitors, trying to get more of a neutral tone. I find conflict quite challenging, so I will use it to not avoid conflict, but deal with the conflict without being aggressive or trying to be more assertive, more to the point, more direct. I've used it well with you, Bally, and you've opened this whole new world to me around the podcasting side of it. So I've been playing with that, and now I feel like we're becoming a lot better friends, AI and I. I've used it a little bit in the writing, grammatical correcting, stuff like that. That's really it at the moment. But I'm keen to learn more about the assistance and using it in that way in helping me become more organized in the day and getting more jobs done, making life a bit easier.
Absolutely. Thank you. And
So
Paul?
I've used like ChatGPT for product descriptions for my Shopify store. And then I've also used a little bit, kind of dipping my toe. I have a membership to it's a tool called Agent X. And so it is um, AI agents. And so there's like preset tools that you can use to like make a YouTube video of a product that then you can post and since Google owns YouTube, that would be like free advertising as opposed to paying for Google Ads, which it can be expensive. So kind of dipping my toe in that a little bit. And then have used agents to do some product research, and that's about it. So
That sounds there's a lot. That's great. Thank you, Paul. And we have Ivan and we have Kathy here. Kathy, it's great to see you. And Ivan's been using some of these tools. So we've had a few names just mentioned there. But Ivan, do you want to share? What are you finding that it's helping you with?
Um, yeah, hi. Nice to see you again. Um, yeah, what's it helping me with? Well, it's helping me stay up all night. It's the first thing I would say, because it's there's like a million things, and it's like a rabbit bloody warren. Wherever you turn, there's a hole, and you end up going down. And on the odd occasion, there's a fox at the bottom of it. Anyway, but I found it useful for a number of things, really. I'm a business coach, but I also have, as you know, I have a company that does market research into Africa and introduces people and stuff. So if I look at my coaching business, working with business owners and dealing with some of the issues, sometimes getting the language right for that particular industry, it's quite quick. So, and I found it's actually down to how you actually prompt it. So depending on the tool that you're currently using, ChatGPT being one of them, I found it puts the language right, not so much for me, but for the person that I'm dealing with. It's in their language, and I found that super, super helpful. The other one is kind of some of the day-to-day meaningful, or no, tedious is the word I would look for. The tedious jobs, like capturing business cards into my CRM system and doing the research of the pieces of information that are missing. It does that quite well. And there's a couple of other things that I use it for. But yeah, it's an interesting journey, but boy, is it filled with late nights, I've got to tell you.
It's so true. You can definitely go down a rabbit hole because you find this one tool and then you're like, oh my goodness, it does this, it does that. And then you can be there for hours, kind of, and this is the thing. And I loved what you shared before, Ivan, what you did with your business cards. You took them away from your desk, so you don't have those cards there anymore. You then you got them and then you put them into, did you put them into your GPT? Is that what you did? You created a list of your
No, what I did, just for the other people on the call, really. So everybody has one of these, yeah, with a million business cards in it, and with the promise of actually doing something with them at some point in the future, right? We've all guilty of that. So what I did was I I saw somebody on one of these calls, and they'd actually had a register which was scanned. So I thought, well, actually, let me plonk all the business cards down on the scanner, scan the damn picture, so it becomes an image. Ask ChatGPT to analyze the image and tell it that it's business cards, and to into a table that, name, address, and all the other nonsense that you need. And then I thought, hang on a second, why am I having this extra step? Because now I have to go and mess around with it to make it look right for my CRM system, right? So that I can send the emails and be nice and all of that. So I thought, well, what the hell? I'll just export a template from the CRM system, because then it gives me all the columns. And I found some of the columns were empty. And I thought, well, why the hell's that? Like business category, business type, that type of thing. So I thought, well, let's have a play. So I scanned an image of some business cards, and you get about 24 on a page, roughly. And I said, go and find the missing information for this table, and then populate the table with the data that you find and from the data from the image. So then it did all of that, but it went away, and it wasn't perfect, but it did much more than I would have actually done. And it said construction, retail, whatever it was. And it found the websites. which was like awesome. It was just like, yeah, go for it. So it took me about half an hour to scan 3 boxes of these, and they were all in my CRM system in literally 2 minutes.
It's amazing.
I used to hire a lady to come and do that. So,
That's a great example of how you're saving time and clearing the deck. I love it. And I love it. Did you then put them into a CSV file and then is that how you downloaded them? Is that just for everybody else so they can capture that? Because you can actually create that in
yeah.
using GPT.
So the CRM system that I use is a thing called Suite CRM, which is a hybrid of a thing called Sugar CRM, and that actually deals with a XLS or a CSV format. But all you have to do is add in your prompt, and later on just say turn this into a CSV or whatever, and then you just literally upload it. I haven't got brave enough yet to use make.com where you could almost link the two. That's a rabbit hole I don't really want to go down just yet, so I'm just leaving it there.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a way to connect your APIs to these various tools. But yeah, absolutely. I know about it. I haven't, and we can use it for marketing. It's the kind of next step, right, from what we're doing at the moment. So yeah, that's fantastic. And I love that you're taking action, Ivan. That's great. So you've categorized them into construction, and that's, then you can know whether that's the kind of sector that you're targeting, right? So that's marketing segmentation type of thing, what you're talking about there. Okay, brilliant. So, Kathy, great to see you.
Glad to be here, Bally. I had to unmute myself. Glad to be here. I'm trying to multitask, so.
Oh, it's lovely. It's amazing seeing you. And Kathy's created, assistants already. You've shared them, and you've taken it to the next level where you've actually created that. And how are your assistants helping you?
Well, I haven't really done a whole lot, Bally, since the last time I was with you. I missed maybe your last couple of sessions, but I've got to plug back in because I learned so much. And just the part that I learned, I mean, I'm currently writing a devotional. I'm writing a book, so it's helped me a lot with research. Um, it's also helped me with writing blogs and. I'm so happy to hear someone mention a podcast because that's my newest thing I'm working on. I just got my microphone.
Oh,
So I'm working on starting a podcast. And so I'm anxious to hear more about how AI has assisted these amazing people with theirs.
yeah, we can definitely look at that at another time because Liza did that, and I'll mention a little bit. I'll kind of weave that in because that's one of the questions that's come up in what I'll be talking about. Key, it's great having you, and please, like I said, ask questions. I'm going to share my slides, and I'll also give you some prompts. There's also a GPT. I can share a couple actually, but the one I really want to share is the phrase refiner. Now, I just want to make sure that which are the tools, because we've kept it quite generic there. We've had Microsoft mention, we've had GPT. Is everybody using, when I say GPT, it's because it's OpenAI. OpenAI obviously is the company, and then they have GPT, which is their product of OpenAI. We've got other tools as well. And there's a bit of a race. If you've been following any of the stuff that's going on at the moment, you will see that we've got, and I'll come on to this in a couple of weeks where we look at open and closed sources. We've got now we've got AIs that are competing the ones that we're getting like Quen AI is a Chinese one that's just come out, and it's overtaken DeepSeek. I mean, in terms of like it uses less. Actually, in fact, DeepSeek is token. They use tokens in terms of assessing how fast, and it kind of gives you the thinking behind the reasoning. And then OpenAI brought out their mini Series 3 just a few days ago. So there's a little bit of like, okay, which of these tools are really competing? So there's this whole thing happening. But the overall thing for us is just to be mindful is the key thing is that we want to stay in lane for our businesses, for our writing. And it's easy to go down the rabbit hole and input a lot of money into these tools because suddenly we get caught into something. We're like, wow, look at that. And then before we know it, we've subscribed and we have all these open subscriptions. So we can definitely talk a little bit about that at some other point. Yeah, there's a little bit of like, oh, China, these open AI, so is it going to be safe? Is it ethical? We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But today, what I want to focus on is writing because it is something that Liza and I collaborating on a piece of writing, and I'll sort of mention a little bit like what I've done as a result of some of that writing. So I'll mention that in sort of co-authored, we co-authored a book together, so that was exciting. Just to kind of end well in November, should I say? But please ask questions. I will share my slides. Liza, were you going to say something?
Actually, you just made me think of something. So not necessarily for now, but maybe to address it at a different time. I think I was reading in the last week something around there was a bit of a warning in being mindful now in how much information you are giving in your prompt about your person within AI. And that was something I had considered before because in my as a coach as well, in wanting to use it for marketing, I was giving it all kinds of information about me to make it sound like my personality, to reflect who I am. And obviously that was not giving anything away that could be used against me, but I thought it would be interesting
Definitely
to hear a little bit more about what is being used with all of this information at some point.
Absolutely. So I
come up against too much or not enough, or what is what's suggested in that area.
And it's a really good conversation I've been having with kind of my mentors is a programmer. We've been talking quite extensively about this, and I can share that with you in terms of kind of safety, what information we use. But yeah, these are getting, people are concerned about that. And it's being mindful of because the tool kind of starts knowing a lot about us. So there are ways that we can turn off, in the settings. I'll show you. I can show you that really quickly if you like, because if that's a massive concern, but I can go into it a little bit deeper next time. As if you go into your GP, like I'll pop it on there, and so you can have a look because I think if these are. So where you go into your settings and you go into the difference between open and closed source sort of tools, right? So these have the reason we use this closed source is because one they've got the propriety, they've been obviously they're all been kind of trained, but there's a certain level of safety people kind of still. That's why this whole discussion about open source, anyone, it's open to communities, that type of thing. So we can come in and so we can go into our settings. And if we go into our settings, and what we could do is we can turn off our there's notifications, but we can actually turn off there's a couple of things I mentioned before. One of them is about memory. So if we go into let me see if it's this part here, this bit here where we turn off the memory, this won't remember the earlier conversation. So you can clear the memory part so that it doesn't pick that up. So if you've got, information that's you're not wanting for it to remember, it won't do that. So we can that, we can activate that. Now, the reason I keep mine on is because I want to train the model to kind of understand my voice and understand the type of writing. So I don't want to always keep prompting it. When we were creating our I don't know if you can see that on screen, but do you remember we were creating our GPTs, and what we did was, I'm just going to move this out the way, but if we were doing the settings part here, so it's just it's tucked away. I've got this thing that's keep popping up here, but do you remember we customize our settings here And so hopefully on the screen it's showing up. There's a little blur on mine. Hopefully you're seeing this. But what I did was I want to train the GPT to understand a little bit about me. So we customized it. That was one of the things that we did. So now they've given us a little bit more on here. So anything, so who am I? I'm a coach. What do I do? Who do I work with? I work with leaders, I offer coaching. Now I just wanted to pre-train that, but I can turn that off and I can cancel that, or I can put my security settings on. So in this close setting, you can definitely do that. And all your GPTs, for example, these ones we created, Kathy, you may remember, that we can actually make these private to us. Now, in this space, I'm just using it here. I'm not, now it is training the model, you might say, well, it is training the model, but I can turn the memory off so it doesn't dilute the message. So I've created these GPTs. If I'm happy to kind of go run through this with any one of you, can and I can put my link. You can book a 15-minute call. I'll show you how to create these. They don't take long. They've been uploaded with kind of my knowledge. I've created some of the tools. Ellen will see these. Kathy might see these, like with the performance tool system that PCU on. And I've got all my toolkit there. I don't have to kind of think about which coaching tool I'm using. So depending on so this is quite powerful. I don't have to kind of start thinking every time. I've actually even put my packages on here. So it actually gives me the documentation for a coaching contract. So I wouldn't put personal information necessarily, but it would give me the frameworks and the documentation. So it provides that. Like I can get my coaching packages, so book an appointment. So I find these really helpful. Leaderize coaching package, like this one, and it will show me what this is. So I've just pre-trained this. So it contains key coaching documents to support coaching needed Leaderize. So it's got my intake, preparation, quiz, the questionnaire that I send out. So I've already uploaded these, which saves a lot of time, right? So that was just one thing I did. And yes, Liza, what I'll do is I'll definitely go through sharing a little bit more on safety and security when we're using other tools. So if we use DeepSeek, because, it's really fast as well. So what does that mean? If we're using Microsoft Copilot, some of these are going to have their own safety kind of, kind of protection, if you like, but we're always training the model. It depends on what information we're uploading.
I think it's just good it's exciting to dive in, isn't it? And you want to use it and everything, but it's so big. I've realized, gosh, I don't even understand. It's impossible to even understand, isn't it? Because it's still mind blowing. It is capable of and where it can go. And so I just thought, when I read that, I thought, oh, that's really a good point to think about that.
Yeah, there was
Safety.
absolutely turning up, putting the security. You can go in this, put the security settings on, and your GPT, where you have your private links like YouTube, you might just keep it unlisted. You don't want anyone else knowing, so we can protect ourselves best we can, right? Depending on what the content and so we can anonymize things as well. So I would just kind of start doing that. But yeah, people don't know, even people who are really out there reading this, they don't know how many AI tools there are out at the moment. There are so many. And we can definitely, as Ivan was saying, we can go down a rabbit hole, and it's easy to do that. It really is. And so I always say, what is it that we're using it for? And how is it going to make our life simpler? And so we've seen some examples already, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my slides now. I'll just get my slides up, and I'll share these as well. And so this is really focusing. So what I like to do behind the scenes, and actually there's a real gap. So if anyone's looking for research projects, there's a real gap at the moment in terms of where the whole kind of AI, research is going, right? So what we're noticing at the moment is there's not enough kind of research still. So I'm going to share a few things here and what is going on at the moment. And so this is kind of so what I do behind the scenes is I work with a programmer and then I start digging deep and then I start looking at what does that mean for us in terms of like when we're creating content, how do we kind of master these skills when it comes to our voices, right? So that's me. So most of you have been to these sessions, right? So I like to I like to look at the application. I also like to look at like conceptually using these because I think it's like anything in business. We can have the concept, we can have many tools to do the thing, but the conceptual thinking behind that will always stay the same. So once we have those concepts, we can use the same sort of thing for Claude, whatever the tool might be. But what these guys found, so they ended up like just back in 2024, like I said, there's a bit of research, not much longitudinal research, as you can imagine. I've just come across one, but this piece of research, they had 19 authors, like writers, and then what the research wanted to do was how, was there a difference between like writing kind of using AI assisted or just writing from kind of just writing? No, like these are professional writers. They're just like, are they using AI tools now? Some of them, so they were doing a little sampling and they got them to do some writing, which was using no AI tools, some writing using AI tools. And so they sent them to that 30 readers. These are avid readers, right? And what they found was that the writers were really concerned that they would lose their kind of credibility or they would lose part of their identity or they would lose their voice in this whole kind of thing. And so they had like three, and I can share the research with you. It's a really interesting paper by Hung. And what they found is that actually there were three levels of like authenticity, right? They were saying, well, it's my voice, but it's also this. And then it was like, okay. But actually, what they found was the writers, they wanted to express themselves and they were thinking more about the process and how they use these tools. But the actual readers didn't care. Like they were like, they couldn't see much difference in that, which was really interesting. They're like, okay, yeah, I've got the content, that's good. So what does that mean for us then? So like if we're writing, so they were like, okay, authority identity, right? What does that mean? The key questions included things like how much of the text remains mine? Like, is it definitely my text if I use AI? And does it dilute the message? Like, does it dilute the message from my original creative intent? Like what I'm getting across. Can I still claim this to be creative ownership of the work? So there's real things about like where's the line with kind of pieces of writing? So this was the concern of these authors. That's what they found in the study. And so the study was done in university in South Carolina, and it was done with Microsoft together. And so what they found was that actually that the ethical side, the ethical implications of AI collaboration, preserving agency, who truly writes the text when AI is involved? That's kind of the question. And how do I ensure the work reflects my intellectual, emotional contribution? How do I know which bit's mine? Because Kathy, this is great for you. Like, so if you're using AI, like which bit's my voice, which bit's like the thing that I'm using. Like these are questions people are not like, some people are asking, but others are just using it. And so the other thing I've noticed, kind of set aside from this research, is we can use any of the tools doing quite standard stuff, and it does a very good job in doing that, like the standard email. If you were just writing an email, most of the tools do a standard thing of surface level stuff. But the more emotive, more the nuances, it misses that. So some tools are better at that than others. You'll find that with Claude, for example. It's still a little bit better, I don't know because it's French. People joke about that, like maybe it's just because it's, it just does a better job. But it is in terms of writing. It just has something, the nuances around that's a little bit better. And I've still only got the free version I'm using in the Claude. Um, but yeah, so those were some of the questions. And so what I like to do is now that I know that actually, is it going to dilute my message or is it not? I like to pre-train the model. So what I like to do is rather than relying on the model and saying, okay, I'm just going to write and I'm going to like ask it, we'll go backwards and forwards. The bit that the writers liked was the ideation bit, the brainstorming. That was the bit the writers really enjoyed. But the actual bit, they were a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to be using it. So there was a little bit of identity conflict going on there. In coaching, we talk about like, so how do we start using it? And what about new writers? Will they have a voice and how will they know what's theirs? Is it going to lack creativity? Or, so lots of questions emerging as a result of AI, especially in that space of writing. So, um, like, so what I ended up doing is, and I showed this to you, Kathy, you might remember. So I started training the model with an example that I have, like sort of feeding it that information. So maybe some of you are using that, are using pre-trained, like your own writing and giving your writing. Yeah. So Ellen's already doing it. Yes. And have you found that? Does it kind of understand?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, usually.
Yeah. Do you find it reflects your voice or does it miss a few things?
Sometimes on the first go round, I think, no, that doesn't sound like me. So then I ask it to have another go, and it does, yeah, seem to get me more. I read it and go, oh, yeah, that sounds like me.
So yeah, it needs that's a great strategy as well because the first time it gives you something, it just because remember it's looking into this latent space and it just kind of predicts the next thing. And more it understands Ellen, it's going to know what Ellen, like how you're writing. It starts noticing, like, so in that environment, it will start picking up the way. And even you'll be surprised at how much as you're writing, it sounds more and more like you because it's starting to understand. I even start saying, given what you know about me, what do you know about me? How do you think I write? And but actually but we want to because we have different types of writing. We write differently if we're writing an email, we write differently if we're writing a report, we write differently if it's a creative endeavor, as Kathy's writing your book. We write, so we have different forms of writing. And even with, so one of the things my mentor actually just, I was thinking, oh, and a sales letter. So the sales letter, it's like this way of writing. No, even within a sales letter, we've got the descriptive, we've got the persuasive, even the layers within that vary. So once we kind of start understanding, like that's what we're trying to train the model because it's not going to understand. Like it would just kind of think it's a sales letter. So that's where we want to have good examples. So what I did is so hopefully Key's with me as well. Is the screen flashing for you or is it okay? Because it's a little bit blurred my side. It's okay. Okay, as long as it's fine. Um, so what I ended up doing is, and I shared this last time, I ended up going through layers of prompting. And so once we start doing kind of the layers, and I'll walk you through this, I feel that's the magic. And as soon as we start thinking about it in that sense, and some of you, I'm sure, may already be doing that. Like sometimes we do this and then go, actually, I've started doing this already. So I get what she's talking about here. So let me see if I got this is the co-writer. This is the, oops, that's not the one.
Bally,
Yeah, Kathy.
I just wanted to share something. I wrote one of my sons a birthday message yesterday
Yeah.
using AI, and he responded and he said to me, it took him a minute to respond. He goes, you always know exactly what to say to make me smile and to make my day. And I was like, wow, because I was concerned. I did it real quick. So I was using it, but I guess it sounded just like me. So
That's amazing. That is beautiful. I love it. I love that. So he just kind of using AI. It's like the kind of, how we're passing and we say, hi, how are you? Like, we'll say, how are you? Like everyone uses those opening kind of like that. And sometimes we might vary it, right? Depending on like the day but often those standard things are kind of okay. But like he knew it came from you. That's the beauty of it. That's amazing.
and I fed it a couple of extra facts. It's my stepson, and his biological mom just passed away about a month ago. So I was saying, I told the AI that I said, his mom just transitioned about a month ago, and so it even said something like, although I know this birthday is really different for you, just know that your mom's love. I mean, it was me. It really sounded just like me, but those factors were fed in. And he was like, wow, he goes, you just always know exactly what to say to make me smile. And I appreciate you more than you could ever know. And I was like, wow.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And so that suggests to me that one, you know what to say in that message, but also if you're using the AI is realizing it knows your personality and it knows how you show up in this world. So that says a lot because that memory, it's kind of like a pre-trained memory of like you're telling it. It's like becoming friends, like they get to kind of know you a little bit more. And so that's kind of
And it
the
says a lot about your training. It
yeah.
says everything about your training.
Like at the end of the day, I can show you stuff, but if you're doing it, Kathy, you're the one, like you're taking action. Like people know about this stuff, but they're not using it. Seriously, they're not using it. They kind of go on, like they say, oh, AI. They think they're using it, but when you ask them, like, what are you using it for? It's very surface level stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go a little bit deeper. Okay, brace yourselves. I'm going to give you a document. I'll share this document with you, and I'll walk you through some of these steps as I go through it. So you'll see, and I actually did create, and so you'll remember this, Kathy, a little bit from when we got together. Oops, this is not what the one I want. This is the one I want. So I'm trying to, it's flashing a bit on my side, but hopefully you've got it. So what we want to do is we're going to go through a few steps, right? And I'll share this with you. We want to pick as a writing example, right? So something that resonates, something that kind of we use. So perhaps it's, perhaps from Liza's case, it's your writing, right, Liza? You might pick something like that. It might be a newsletter, different form, presentation, whatever that post. If we were creating, so some people like haven't started doing social media, like some of my friends are going, oh, we're going to do social media. I'm like, go and get really good examples, like, and start familiarizing yourself or creative writing. Then what you would do is I used it and I'll show you. I've got a link actually I used. And Kathy, I think you were in that session where I go through this and it's about 50 minutes. So we won't obviously do it now, but I go through each steps and I do a demo, live demo. And what I did was I uploaded the chapter that I wrote in that book, which was Wisdom Woven Through Adventure. This was the piece that Liza and we collaborated on. And we used the same text, if you like, when we created the podcast using Notebook LM. And so, Kathy, I can share that link with you so you can have a go. Or you and I can jump on a call. I can show you exactly how to do that. So what I then did was I said, okay, that's great. Now, I said to it, analyze. And so what you want to do is you want to use these prompts, and I'm going to give you this document. You want to analyze the attached document or presentation. So you could use it for writing a presentation. You could use it for an email. You could use it for like a chapter. And you say to profile my writing style because it does it to a certain level, but it doesn't do the other things I'm going to go through. So I want it to focus on things like tonality, vocabulary. I might go kind of semantic or syntactic structure, like pace, that type of thing. and then I would say before starting, tell me who or what expertise or framework should be applied to ensure that it's got authenticity, or it still ensures authenticity, right? It still sort of captures that. So what it will do, it will give you a list of um, like like linguist, or it might say psychologist, or it might say so all these kind of experts, or it might even say, so what have I had in the past? I've had things like market, strategist, right? Or things that I may not have necessarily known. So I'm getting it to do some work for me. I'm now prompting it. So what I would then do, and then I would kind of, it's done things like narrative theories. Now I wouldn't have known that, because of course, it's a narrative, it's a story, right? Because it's kind of getting that to do its deeper analysis. Because, like I said, all the tools do very surface stuff. But what we want to do is dig deeper into this and really start getting more of the nuances. So this is called layer prompting. And so we want to do the analysis. So I would then say things like perform each analysis. So don't give me this. And I use the analogy. So Ivan will remember this. Like we don't want to we don't want to put everything in a hot pot. We want to kind of create a recipe, like, we want to put the cake and we want to put the ingredients step by step without kind of, do it carefully. So we do something called layers. And so I would do each analysis, and what it does, it kind of gives you the analysis in that, and you'll see in the recording I'll share with you in the chat in a moment. And so then I also ask it to do something called JSON profile. So for those who like Keys on here, she's tech, we're looking at JSON profile. So it's just a Javis, should I say, Javis profile. We don't need to know that, it's going to have this certain way of formatting. I'm just getting it. I'm giving it the language that it knows best. And then what it does, it kind of gives me this output. And it's flashing on my side. Hopefully it's okay for you. And then it says, so it does this. This is great. So I say, that's fantastic. For each of those individuals, it gives me this layer. So it gives me one by one. So if it's got a theorist, it's got a narrative, it's giving me these outputs, if you like. Then I do another step and say, now I want to go a bit deeper. I want to know the beliefs, values, and a little bit more. So I start prompting it even further. So based on the text, now we're still talking about that text, infer my underlying values, my beliefs, my world perspective, that type of thing. And we can even go deeper in that than that. And then I say, include that now. So what I do is, these are the kind of, I suppose it's almost like a little bit of a recipe, right? And then it creates this kind of, it gave me things like cultural connection, personal growth, and you'll see in the clip. And then what I get it to do is I'll then say, now consolidate all that into a reusable prompt. In other words, condense it, becomes my signature voice. And then I just label that into a reusable profile. And then what I can do with that is I can save it. Or what I can do is I can create my own assistant with that if I wanted to. But I can actually just use that when I'm writing. So if I'm using my creative writing, I don't have to do this every time. I can do this for my best copies. So if it's a presentation, I've got it. So if I use the way I created this presentation deck, if you like, it's an AI deck. So I can use a prompt like this and create my deck, or I can use it so the concept can be used in with other kind of models, depending on what you're using. So yeah, and then what it did was it created a profile, and then I said, look, username, B's creative writing, style, descriptive, reflective, first person narrative, emotional, culturally rich. It had kind of varied sentence types, and there were kind of intentional pauses within that. And then there's empathy, stories as connection and growth. So that's what it came out with. I didn't give it any of that. I just gave it my initial, if you like, my initial document that I was happy with. And then it produced and I'll give you this step by step, and I'll give you the clip. So, and you can start doing this for any form of writing. But what it captures is your signature way, or if you want to have analyze someone else's, then you can do the same and start understanding how they're writing, and so you can think of replicating that style of writing. So something you really like, like if you like Dan Kennedy, for example, his emails are amazing. I'm like, okay, great. Like, okay, I want to analyze his writing, right? So you could do that, or someone's piece of writing that you might have. So have a go at doing something like that, and I will share I'll share that clip, and then you can have a go at using this, and you can add other points. Now, a lot of us as coaches, we may even go a little bit further and add other frameworks like disk analysis, or like any other like if I'm doing what's the one that what's the one that the the C the
CVI.
CVI, that's the one. I knew you knew that. CVI, the core values index. We've got a friend that uses that. I just kind of, so we can use that process, and it keeps our voice. Now, those are steps, and I'm going to share that with you. So I've got a YouTube clip which I go through that step by step, and it would have been too long to do it here. But those are the layers I found. So I'd love everyone to have a go at doing that for a piece of writing, and then using that. So Kathy, I haven't asked you how far you are in your book, but that will be, and you can create the essence, and it will help speed up the process of writing, because it's still got us, the core essence, without kind of diluting, but we still have to be the chief editors. That research was saying the same thing. We still are the chief gatekeepers of our piece of writing. That's the expression that they used in that. Any questions around that? And I will share that with you. Yeah, Ivan.
So I've been biting my tongue here. When you talk about on your last slide, so I get you can pick up the narrative, tone of voice, and all of that kind of stuff, which is great. I'm definitely going to give it a go. So if I don't sleep tonight, it's all your fault, okay? However, when you talk about things like disc or some kind of profile, how would you? I guess the question is, I can see how we get to a chunk of stuff where we can say, okay, write the piece like, about this using this. I get that, but how do you get it to speak to, let's say, you want to talk to all an audience which is a mix of the different profiles, but you want something that's a little broad, maybe, or something that's a little more geared to, let's say, high Ds as an example, that type of thing.
Yeah, I love
Just
that.
how would you do that?
Yeah. So if you want to address high Ds, and say you find a lot of your clients are high Ds and that disc profile, what you can do is actually use the AI to relay messages. So we can actually train the AI to kind of use the language that a high, like a D personality trait would have, which is really powerful, because the way we communicate to them is going to be different, right?
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah. So
I'm sold. So there we go.
I mean, for terms of communication, it's definitely a powerhouse, because, if you've got someone who in kind of like some of the assessments, then I could say, maybe use more empathy, like slow down
Mm,
if there's an S, so we could, like, so what would be the strategy here? But yeah, like we can kind of tailor emails
yeah.
depending on that individual's personality type, trait.
Wow, that is so powerful, because that affects sales letters, all of that. Because uh, one of the things that I do is I profile somebody real quick when I meet them. I don't always get it right, but I've got a rough idea of what they are. And so when you giving them a quote or the next steps or whatever it is in terms of the process, or even just writing a piece that you want to just plonk out as a blog post on your website, and you want to aim at these kind of people, you can piece. So you got the skeleton, and then you can say rewrite, but aimed at an
Uh,
I or a DI or whatever.
yeah, and what you could do is even
Wow.
examples in your assistant, so you don't have to always to go back to the sort of the starting point. You know what I mean? You've already kind of primed,
Hmm.
so you've got those to evoke in your GPTs if you like, or you've got a document
Mm.
to use because that's what I tend to do. I may not put them in my GPT, but I've got them if I use a different tool, for example. But you could keep them in your GPT. So it just makes it saves time. I mean, the key thing is we're saving
Mm.
time. But once we have it, it will definitely save time. I think it's the initial setup. It's a bit like when you're buying your first ingredients. You're like, okay, have I got my stuff? And I've got them in the cupboard and I know what
Mm.
to get for what
Oh,
task.
thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question and I love it. And this is something I'm definitely going to be doing as well. So Ivan, thank you. And it will help everyone else too. Other questions, I'm just going to see if I can get that document. I can put it in here. And I can, if I don't put it in here, I would definitely share what we've spoken about. Like Kathy, with your writing, how do you feel you're going to use this? Do you find?
Well, moving forward, I want to write a fiction piece. This is just a devotional that I'm working on, and I'm really pretty much done with it. I may use um, the AI for an introduction. I have not yet done the introduction for the book. But moving forward for, fiction, I've created 5 characters, and I'll probably use the AI to do some research. Like one of the people's Asian, one of them is Jewish. I mean, so it can give me some insight as to those cultures, things that I have no knowledge of,
Yeah,
if that
absolutely.
makes sense.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you can sort of get an understanding of like what would be appropriate, that type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
progress would be really key. And you could do this even though you're nearing completion. Like Liza and I, when we finish writing, we still have that the way we wrote. So we still got that piece of style of writing that we can use if we wanted to, if that makes sense. It's
Yes.
like the prompt. It's the go-to
Yes.
in a creative piece. Like Liza might say, let's go and write another book, for example, or Ellen's written a book too, right? So you've got it. You can, and you may have the next chapter. You're like, okay, does it kind of have the same style? Am I connecting? Or you can even analyze and critique your own writing using these, like having something like that. That makes sense.
Yes. And I have actually on a couple of the entries, I've I've fed it to GPT after I decided once I had done like several chapters, I said, well, really, I want to prioritize which chapters should go where.
Yeah.
And it did that for me. It told me like what was most what was most effective. Well, actually I think the question I asked was what are issues that are most prominent in the world today in this climate? And it went through and it prioritized.
Oh, that's amazing. It does that kind of contents page by kind of like that's fantastic. So the power behind
Mhm.
there's so much that we can do with it. And that's a great example. So great examples we've had where we're using the tech. So I can see it being used for Paul's writing for his because you're putting you're using these tools to kind of capture you're getting leads, right? Basically selling product as well, Paul, from what you said earlier. Yeah. Brilliant. So, Kathy, I'm excited to see how that develops in form of your writing. So definitely have a go at doing that. I'm trying to get the link, but what I will do is um, I've got the YouTube clip here, which I go through this step by step. But then I think what you really need is that document, which I'll give you as well. And the other thing I ended up doing is I ended up creating a GPT to clean up my work. And I mentioned this in that message that so what I found that even when I'm writing and it like it was getting, like Ellen was saying, it was getting my voice to one, it was understanding the way I write. We may have also writing. I'll share my screen with you. Oh, okay. So, it's a little bit of a pause. I don't know if that's my end. So, yes, that's the clip that we went through where I've gone through step by step. And I've lost my train of thought as I was just going to say something there, but I've lost it.
You were saying about your tone of voice. It was beginning to understand your tone of voice.
Yeah, it was understanding the actual tone of voice, but sometimes GPT will all give you some phrases that I don't use. Like some people use harness, but I may not use it. So what I ended up doing was having a phrase cleaner. And so if you would give it a try and see if it does help clean the phrase. So I can share that with you. Um, and so like does it do it for you? So the way I will share it is okay, so I'm going to put it in the chat in a moment. And so it ought to clean up some of those cliche expressions that we sometimes have when we're using these tools, especially, well, I'm going to put in my GPT because you can add it in there. So I'm just going to open up this. You're not seeing it at the moment because, so I'll just show you on my screen. For some reason, my end, there's a little bit of a layer which is flashing mine, but it's not obviously disturbing you. So I've trained a GPT, say your role as a phrase refiner is to identify cliches and jargon, providing clear, authentic alternatives that will enhance relatability, make it more relatable and impactful. So what I will do is I will copy this and I will give you this. And the way you would then put it into your GPT, if you have GPT, if most of you have that, is you put it into the side panel. So one of the things that I found is that when I was getting GPTs initially, I would open it, but then it would get lost. And I found that we have to put it in the sidebar, and then it will appear.
Hello, everyone. How do we do that, Bally? Sorry, I'm rubbish.
No, you're doing amazing. So when you open it up, and do you see, let me show you if I can show you my end here. Yeah, so
really easy. Up at the top, it says phrase refiner GPT, up top leftish, not quite in the menu, and you click on it, and it says put it in the sidebar. Dish.
Yeah, you can put it in the sidebar. This is if I took that away, it will hide it. But if I said keep it in sidebar, it will keep it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blown away. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So give it a go and see what you think. I may still need to update that. And then there was something else you mentioned. Now, this was shared by my mentor, one of my mentors. I've been going through various classes and they've openly shared this with a lot of people. So I'm going to do the same for you and I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you something where you were talking about, where you were having those difficult conversations. Well, I'm going to share something called, let me see where it's gone. Beg your pardon. It's called Roscoe. And I'm going to share this one with you because it actually handles some of those difficult conversations we might have, like confrontations, that type of thing. And so I think I'm meant to receive it from someone else, and they're like, okay, we're going to share it with everyone because it was just so beneficial. But we're not going to go down the rabbit hole with this because Key at the top put, yeah, it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole. But we want to stay in lane and we want to use it for us and we want to know what it is that we're using it for. Oh, Ellen, yes, you've got to go. Yep, Ellen's had to go. And I just want to say thank you. I hope you found this helpful. Okay. And what were some of the big things, takeaways for you? And I'm going to share that document with you. If I don't do it now, it's there's a little layer on my screen. It's flashy, but I will definitely share that document so you've got it because you have the YouTube clip, but not the document. What were the kind of the things that you would take away and apply immediately after this session, Kathy?
For me, say everything. I mean, you every time when I'm with you, it's like I learned so much. I mean, it's just it's almost mind blowing. I mean, and this is the future. I mean, those who are not adept at utilizing these AI tools, they're just gonna be left in the dust. I mean, if you just turn on the news and listen to it any day, it's like AI is it's the thing. It's now. It's kind of like the internet was back in the day. A lot of people were afraid of it, but I mean, what would we do without the internet? I mean, we wouldn't be having this meeting. So I did have one other question too. Somebody turned me on to one called Poe.
Yes,
Are you familiar with that?
yes, I was one of the earliest ones I used. Poe has they sometimes we have things like Poe where they have many versions of GPT. Like they'll have GPT, they'll have different models within Poe. It was one of the first ones I actually had. Yeah, it's great too. So there's so many different models, and so people are jumping between. That's why we can't easily go down the rabbit hole because we're like, oh, we'll test it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Poe's really good. You can jump between, say, Claude, and you can go backwards, forwards. But I will always say, okay, what am I using it for? Which one am I subscribing to? I subscribe to GPT because I've got my assistants. They're kept there. And it's my
I
20.
subscribe to Poe, but I think I need to get rid of it because I'm
Oh,
not using it.
oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
one of those kind of people like you were talking about who will subscribe. It's like, oh yeah, let me try that. So I subscribe to it and I'm thinking I've had that for 3 months and I've not used it one time.
Yeah. So you can even downgrade. You still have access to the free version anyway. That would
Okay.
be the thing because you can still access it and then it will tell you you've got to your limit. I mean, your example is brilliant and I won't keep you too long. Yesterday in the news, BBC News on one of the apps, they said em employees are using AI without the boss knowing. So they're using their own private tools because there are no policies. They're not sure how to implement it, which ones to. So there's a discussion. Which one should we use? Should we use Copilot? Should we use Gemini? And so what ends up happening is they use them and, it's like, well, it's against policy regulation. Well, get on board, like, okay. So it's really interesting that people are slow and not kind of using it, but the concepts are there. Like as long as we know the concepts like this layering and prompting, that's really helpful. I find anyway. Hopefully you'll find the same when you give that a go.
Thank you, Bally.
Oh, you're more than welcome. So yeah, Liza, Paul, your feedback. I know we've just gone over time, so I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It's
Yep.
always mind blowing here.
Yes, very. Um, yes, it was great to sit in on this. For me, it was the refining the using the tools to make it sound more personalized to me. Like I can take a blog, like an AI blog, and then run it through and refine it so that it sounds more like me and not generic, you know. So
Writing style.
writing styles. So that was a key takeaway for me.
Beautiful, absolutely. And I'm excited and that's the thing, right? Because that's the power in it, because we want to we still want to differentiate ourselves and marketing our products or whatever. We're getting our message to the world because it's going to be branding is going to become the bigger thing. I believe that as we step into this. So it's amazing, Ivan, thank you for sharing. In a couple of weeks, I'll go into ethics and go into open source and like what does that mean in terms of protecting and safeguarding what we're putting out there. And more than happy for anyone to kind of book and schedule a few moments we can go through. Even so, if you want to do the podcast, for example, I can more than happy to do that. And what I'll do is after this call, I'll share that document with you. And so you've got it. So you can book a call with me. You can WhatsApp me. Most of you got my details. Key, it's really good to have you on. Dee, I know it's a working hour for some of you there. Dee, what were some of your take? Dee says, oh, Key says, yeah, Poe is great. Also, Key saying, Dee says, thank you. Sorry for the silence. Always amazing. You're welcome, Dee. It's good that you're here. Dee's working. She's doing the working. So I just want to say thank you. And if there's anything you want to, did you want to say something, Liza? Did you want to add something?
No, sorry, I'm just talking to myself.
Really good. Yeah, really good to see you both and meet you as well, Paul. Thank you for coming. Kathy,
I just wanted to say, I was on a call with Eben Pagan a little while back, and he said something which was quite profound. So I'll just share it because it impacted me hugely. And it was this. He said, AI is not going to take your job,
Right.
but those that know how to use AI will.
Yes.
And that really spoke to me. And the fact that we're all on this call and having a conversation and probing and experimenting, it puts us ahead of the game, and like I don't know who said it earlier, there were people on the who know about stuff, but they don't do anything. Yeah, knowing one thing's cool. Yeah, doing something with it, that's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
100%.
Congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much, Bally, for your time and your knowledge and expertise.
Oh,
Yes.
you're welcome. It's actually my mentor is Eben Pagan's strategist, so he works with me. So we look at some behind the scenes. So yeah, there you go. I mean, like he's got a different kind of way, and it's very high end. It's a little bit like program language. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's great. So I appreciate you, and then I unpick what he says. I go away and go do the research so I can bring it to all of us and start looking at what's going on in this field of AI because there's a certainly bit of a gap when we're kind of now at the forefront of this and using it, and mind, yeah, and take it easy, and I look forward to hearing where you go with this. And oh yes, that's right. I spoke. Yeah, Kia spoke at Boston University where she was looking at AI. Don't let AI train you. Yeah, I always say you steer it rather be steered by AI, and that's kind of what I will leave it at.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, evening.
Thank you. Great class.
All right.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
See
Ciao.
ya. Bye.